Why is it that the Islamic regime in Iran is not surrendering? Is it because they truly think that they could win against the Americans and Israelis? Is it because they think that it's their religious duty to keep fighting? Or maybe if we keep going like this, they will surrender at some point. The answer to this is there's an obstacle in their way that makes it very difficult for them to surrender. And this is something that most people do not understand and they're not including in their analysis. There is something that forces the Islamic Republic to resist surrendering, even if they wanted to. And to truly understand this, you have to learn something about the Islamic Republic that most people don't know, which is causing a lot of miscalculation. And I haven't seen anybody discuss this the way I'm going to explain it to you right now. What you have to understand first is the original purpose and then the evolution of IRGC. And the evolution is actually more important than the original intention. So many of you already know that the IRGC was created by Khomeini, the first supreme leader of the Islamic regime in Iran and the founder of the Islamic Republic. And the original intention behind creating that was for it to be this anti-coup force against the Artesh, which is the original army of Iran started during the Pahlavi dynasty. Khomeini created this parallel army, which is the IRGC, as a balancing force against the Artesh in case they get the idea that they want to do a coup against the mullahs and take over, which is pretty smart to be honest, and it worked out. However, what the IRGC became is very much different from what they originally were created for. Khomeini, when he was alive, there's audio recordings of him making this clear that the IRGC should not be involved in politics. It's only meant to be a military force. And he banned them from being involved in politics. For a lot of us who grew up in Iran, when we learned about this, that was quite bizarre because IRGC is the most politically powerful part of the Islamic Republic. When I was growing up in Iran, I remember when I first heard that audio from Khomeini, I was shocked how different Khomeini's goals, Khomeini's intentions for IRGC was compared to what the IRGC was when I grew up in Iran. So how did that happen, and what does that got to do with the situation that we're currently in? When Khomeini died, there's this guy called Hashemi Rafsanjani, who is the guy responsible for making Khamenei the second supreme leader. And it's hard to believe this right now, but the reason why Hashemi Rafsanjani picked Khamenei as the next supreme leader is that he believed Khamenei was a nobody who would never become powerful enough to challenge him. He made Khamenei the supreme leader as a way to create a weak symbolic supreme leader for him to be able to have more of the power. Which is again something very bizarre when I eventually learned about that, because growing up in Iran, Khamenei was the ultimate power in Iran. To learn that he was originally picked to be a nobody, a hand-picked, a symbolic supreme leader by Rafsanjani was another shocking thing that I learned when I first saw the original leaked video of the meeting, where we have video of this on the meeting, that Hashemi Rafsanjani came and lied and said that he specifically had heard Khomeini pick Khamenei as the next supreme leader, which nobody other than Hashemi Rafsanjani apparently had heard about. So how did Khamenei became so powerful, not symbolic at all, becoming the main authority within the Islamic Republic, and how did IRGC turn from this specifically military unit to the greatest political and economic force inside Iran. What happened is that Khamenei and IRGC started working with each other against the Rafsanjani camp. Khamenei's weakness from Rafsanjani's perspective was that he didn't have the religious credentials to be the supreme leader. In fact, if you watch the video of the meeting where they're picking him as the next supreme leader, they make it clear that this is only temporary, like he's going to be the supreme leader temporary, because Khamenei himself mentions in that meeting that it's actually not legal for him to be the supreme leader because he doesn't have the religious credentials. Technically, he shouldn't even be considered an ayatollah, let alone a supreme leader. And he famously said in that meeting that people should be crying rivers of blood for a nation where he is the supreme leader. He actually said that, Khamenei himself. But Hashemi Rafsanjani said, no, it's okay, it's fine, you could be the supreme leader. And he became the supreme leader. Eventually, we had this symbolic supreme leader who had the advantage of the Constitution of the Islamic Republic giving him full authority, which Rafsanjani didn't take that very seriously, but because words on a piece of paper will not do much. Power comes from economic leverage, from people believing in you and finding you credible, and more importantly than all of them, military power. So that what the IRGC did at that point, they came and worked with Khamenei, and Khamenei, using his position as supreme leader, gave more and more power to the IRGC, and IRGC returned a favor by backing Khamenei to the point that he became more powerful. This became a perfect team where Khamenei was using his position as the supreme leader to untie the hands of IRGC and increase their influence in places that they should not have, they were not supposed to have influence. And IRGC used all of its economic power and military power to make the position of Khamenei more and more influential and making him more and more powerful. And eventually, that team of Khamenei and IRGC together, they became everything within the Islamic Republic. And eventually, they killed Rafsanjani. So what happened next is that, in a simplified way, if I want to explain this, what happened after is that you had what some people refer as to hardliners and another group where people refer as to the reformers, modern reformers, which is nonsensical. The modern reformers were actually more Islamic and more of a hardliner originally than the people referred to as the hardliners. The people who were closer to the Rafsanjani camp were seen as the reformers, and the people closer to Khamenei and the IRGC camp were seen as the hardliners. Again, I'm really simplifying here. What happened is that Khamenei kept on using reformers as a way to play good cop, bad cop with both the foreigners, with Western powers, and also the Iranian people. Again, I'm not going to go into a lot of details for how he did that, but one of the ways he tried to not lose credibility with his own hardliner followers while using the reformers is that he also used them as a scapegoat for whatever bad happened, for whenever something happened that the hardliners, his own supporters, didn't like. So he basically had three audiences. He had his own hardliner following, then he had the Iranian people, and then he had the foreign powers. He would give the reformers, he would allow them to be more active when he needed that, and then he will limit their ability to operate when he saw fit. But part of this strategy was whenever the hardliners saw things are not Islamic enough in the country, he would blame it on the so-called reformers and make it seem like it wasn't his decision, it was them, which over the years has made his own followers and supporters to hate the reformers with a passion. And at some point, this hate got too much. He overused the reformers to the point where the hardliners' hate for the reformers became so high that they completely kicked them out of politics for a couple of years. And that caused the hardliners to start turning against each other because they didn't now have the reformers as this fake enemy that would unite them. And now, because everything, all the power, all the political power, and all the financial power, and all the economic influence, and everything else was now to be divided among the hardliners. Now, for that remaining power and influence, the hardliners started turning into different camps, which were now taking positions against each other. So now we had hardliner versus hardliner. And this created fragmentation of the hardliners, including fragmentation within the IRGC. This all before the Mahsa Revolution, before the 12-Day War. We already had different parts of the hardliners and different camps within hardliners and different camps within IRGC competing against each other. But certain events like the Mahsa Revolution and the eventual refusal of Iranian women to wear the hijab and the regime having a hard time enforcing hijab laws inside Iran, and then many operations by Israel, and then eventually including the 12-Day War, where many of the heads of IRGC were killed, and the inability of the Islamic Republic to meaningfully respond to Israel. And then also eventually President Trump, who also previously had killed Qasem Soleimani, and the Islamic Republic had not responded quite in a significant way to President Trump's killing Qasem Soleimani either. But eventually they also came out and bombed Natanz, Fordow, and Isfahan, the Isfahan nuclear site, and there wasn't any meaningful response to that as well. So the lack of ability to enforce hijab laws, which is enforcing Islamic laws, was the whole point of the Islamic Revolution of 1979. The inability to respond to the Israelis and Americans, including the killer of Qasem Soleimani, and the eventual realizations that we need reformers back in power. So they actually created the situation where Pezeshkian, which is the fakest of all reformers, by the way, they made him the president because they now saw that they need an enemy within to unite the hardliners at that point. But it was too late. We had enough fragmentations within the Islamic Republic, within the hardliners, because of these three things that I mentioned. But on top of that, the killing of the main IRGC leaders at a time that the division between the hardliners was already happening created a power vacuum where all of these different groups, camps within the hardliners now had to fill in this power vacuum that was created by Israel, and that caused this division and infighting to escalate on a whole new level. And this all before Operation Epic Fury, which I can't even begin to talk about how much that escalated all of this infighting. Another thing that was happening all of this time was that the IRGC was getting so powerful that it was becoming the main source of power within Iran. More powerful than the Beit Rahbari, which is the office of the supreme leadership. So if you see IRGC and the supreme leader, the IRGC was becoming the main source of power, much more powerful relative to the supreme leader himself. And we already were seeing a transition of power from the supreme leader to IRGC. And the understanding was that at some point, this slow transition will be complete. And we basically have a slow moving coup d'etat happening. And at some point, the supreme leader will become just a symbolic supreme leader, and all control will belong to the IRGC. Which, by the way, if you have noticed, that's what has happened with the killing of Khamenei. Mujtaba Khamenei is a puppet. A lot of people don't realize that he's not important compared to the IRGC. He was handpicked by the IRGC specifically for this purpose. A lot of people don't realize that a coup d'etat has happened in Iran against the office of the supreme leadership in favor of the IRGC completely. The Islamic Republic is now completely IRGC. The problem with all of this for the IRGC And what I'm about to tell you might sound insane, but it's true, is that Khamenei actually had a moderating impact on IRGC because all of this internal conflict and division within the hardliners and IRGC, the only person that could get people on the same page, the utility of the supreme leader, was that whatever was the most convenient position for the Islamic Republic to have, the most pragmatic one, he would come say what that position is in one of his sermons. After his sermon, everybody would get on the same page. He had that impact. And without Ali Khamenei, there is nobody that could do that. Mujtaba Khamenei, even if he's alive and if he's not injured, he can never do that. I just recently talked to Mehdi Nasiri, which was handpicked by Ali Khamenei. Go watch my discussion with him if you haven't already. But Mehdi Nasiri was the main propagandist of Ali Khamenei, handpicked by him in his main newspaper, in his main way to address the Iranian people in the media. Mehdi Nasiri, I talked to him. By the way, Mehdi Nasiri has defected from the regime and he's now on our side. But he's also one of the very few people who has met with Mujtaba Khamenei and has talked to him. They were talking about theology, but still, he's one of the very few people who has knowledge about Mujtaba Khamenei because he had a meeting with him. And if you go listen to my conversation with him, he explains that Mujtaba doesn't really know how to speak, which is the whole point of a mullah, by the way, is to speak and give sermons. And Mujtaba apparently sucks at giving speeches. And Mehdi Nasiri said that in that meeting that I was having with him, I was thinking, how could you be the next supreme leader if you suck so much at speaking? And by the way, Mujtaba Khamenei has even less religious credentials compared to his father. He's not an Ayatollah. Everybody calls him an Ayatollah. Based on their own standards, he's not fit to be an Ayatollah, let alone a marja. The leveling is like this: Hujjatul Islam, Mujtahid, then Ayatollah, then marja. So, Mujtaba being a Mujtahid is something that people questioning, let alone him being an Ayatollah. And this is now the supreme leader? It violates the Islamic Republic's own rules for him to be the supreme leader because he doesn't have the credentials to even be an Ayatollah. And apparently he's not even good at speaking, which means that he's not even good at being a mullah. I can see why the IRGC loves him in the same way that Hashemi Rafsanjani thought that Khamenei's lack of religious credentials means that he will have all the power. IRGC is thinking that, okay, this person is definitely not qualified to be the supreme leader, so for sure now I'm going to have all the power. By the way, anybody who tells you that the assembly of experts have picked the supreme leader, they have no idea what they're talking about. It was the IRGC. The assembly of experts were even threatened when they were considering other people. Threatened by the IRGC. By the way, I hope you're appreciating all of this information that I'm giving you here. You're not going to hear this anywhere else. So why does Khamenei have a moderating impact on IRGC? Because sometimes you need to surrender. Sometimes you need to capitulate. And it's very hard to do so when you are the Islamic Republic. Why? This is the most important part that you have to understand. In the past 47 years, the Islamic Republic's source of legitimacy to its own followers is that the Islamic regime in Iran is this powerful resistance against imperialism and Zionism, and the representative of Mahdi's rule before he shows up. Mahdi is the 12th Imam in 12 Shia Islam. He's the #1 world champion in hide and seek. He's missing, and you're not supposed to rule in Shia Islam until he comes back. But Khomeini came up with a way that, like, no, actually, we are supposed to rule for him and prepare everything for him to come back. So, a whole bunch of religious mumbo jumbo. I'm not going to go into the details right now. The marketing, the advertising, the brand of the Islamic Republic is that you need to support us because we are the ones who are fighting evil. We are the powerful force that is fighting imperialism and Zionism. We enforce Islamic law on Islamic land, unlike these other fake Islamic leaders around the world. And we are God's representative on earth because we're ruling on behalf of the Mahdi until he shows up. And it's very important that you are convincing here because your entire legitimacy rests upon you being able to convince your followers that this is the case. This is why when women in Iran are walking without hijab, it challenges the idea that the Islamic regime is enforcing Islamic law. This is why when Israel all of a sudden shows up and kills a whole bunch of your military commanders and you don't manage to take a single one of their commanders, it challenges that narrative. This is why when they kill your supreme leader and nothing even remotely close happens to them, it challenges all of that narrative. I need you to understand why is it so important that they keep this image that they have created for their own followers. If they fail at that, everything will fall apart. The Islamic Republic fears losing its last remaining followers more than it fears Israelis, more than it fears Americans, and it even fears that more than it fears the millions of Iranian people in the streets protesting against Islamic rule. Because from their perspective, Americans and Israelis will not be able to do regime change bombing me from the air. They will come, they will destroy a lot of things, they will go, we have oil and gas, we will rebuild them. The Iranian people coming into the streets in large numbers, their perspective is that I will just shoot them, they will go home, they will come back again, I will shoot them, and we will keep dancing this dance, and I will be able to survive that. But these events, the Israelis attacking, the Americans attacking, the Iranian people in the streets, these three have an effect on the fourth element, which the Islamic Republic fears the most, which is the challenge to this image that they have been creating in the past 47 years. What, from the Islamic Republic's perspective, if I lose my last remaining followers, that's what brings me down. That's what would cause my toppling. A lot of people, when they watch videos of the Islamic regime saying that, oh, we have defeated the Americans, we have humiliated them, we have reduced Tel Aviv to ashes, we have sunk the USS Abraham Lincoln, we have brought down F-35s, the Americans are running away, they're hiding in their holes, we're winning this war. A lot of people, when they see these videos, they think to themselves, are these people insane? Have they lost their mind? And the answer is that actually, no, they're not as insane as you think they are. But what they know that their followers are insane. They themselves are not insane, but their entire base of support is insane. To be fair, they are also somewhat cuckoo, but I'm just saying there's different levels to this. But they understand that they have created this cult, this following of people who need to be fed these narratives, or else they will stop supporting the Islamic Republic. Their remaining followers do actually believe that the Islamic Republic is powerful and is capable of destroying Israel and even destroying the United States. And their enemies of the Islamic Republic fear them. And even if you see some weaknesses, it's always because of the reformers. It's not because of the supreme leader. Oh no, never. No, never never because of IRGC, never because of the supreme leader. It's always because of these damn reformers. What the Islamic Republic has done, it has made these people addicted to this narrative that they're constantly winning. These people cannot wake up from this delusion. They are in too deep. You cannot wake these people up from this dream world that the Islamic Republic has created for them, because if they do wake up, then they will stop supporting the Islamic regime, and that would be the last day of the Islamic regime. So the reason why the Islamic Republic cannot capitulate and show any signs of surrender is because they cannot show weakness to these people. And without Khamenei, because when Khamenei was around, every time they needed to retreat a little bit, Khamenei would come out and give a sermon that would satisfy these people. They would come up with some justification or some blame on the reformers, and these people, some of them, will be convinced by that. The reason why I say some of them is because every one of these humiliations, whether it's a job or Israel or United States, it became less and less convincing, and we had defections from the regime. Every year we were getting more and more defections, or at least lack of support, less support for the regime. But without Khamenei, there's nobody to convince these people that any form of retreat or bending the knee was not actually a sign of weakness. And that's why now what we have is maximum expectation from the IRGC, especially because they killed the supreme leader. These people want revenge. And now let's look at the combination of everything that has happened. Because the IRGC is fragmented, and because we also killed the very last person that could have brought them together, which was Larijani. That was the last person that could have done that. I explained in my other videos why. But because the IRGC is very fragmented and the source of their legitimacy is this base of support for the Islamic Republic that now wants maximum strength, no retreat, no surrender, revenge for the killing of Khamenei, and there is no Ali Khamenei to sell them a BS narrative for why they had to back down at here or there. What you're witnessing from inside Iran is that the remaining people within the Islamic Republic are outcompeting each other when it comes to showing strength against the Americans and Israelis and not showing any sign of surrender. And this competition is making it escalate more and more to the point that we're getting the most insane narratives, even more insane than before, regarding how much they're defeating the Americans and Israelis. So it's getting out of hand, and that's why it's making it very difficult. It's making it very difficult for, if there's anybody within the IRGC who's, guys, we actually need to back down here. First of all, that guy is going to be in a very dangerous situation because right now there's very little appetite from the Islamic Republic's base of support for hearing anything like that. But the difference between this cuckoo land that these people live in and the objective reality of what they're facing is causing some major division between some more pragmatic people and more Allahu Akbar Durka Durka people. The problem is that even if you wanted to be pragmatic and try to survive this, as signal to the Americans that, yeah, we actually want to negotiate and maybe back down a little bit. The problem is that it's really hard to do that without it getting leaked to the rest of IRGC that something like that is happening, because to do that to the Americans, you actually have to show some signs of surrendering, which will immediately be picked up by other parts of the IRGC that might call you out and label you as a traitor. But it also doesn't help that President Trump just comes out and says it out loud every time some parts of the Islamic Republic is trying to bend the knee. President Trump just comes and publicly announces that is happening. And the problem is that he also points out the visible signs of how we could verify that this is happening, which will also be noticed by some other parts of the IRGC. It's a very tough situation for the IRGC to be in right now. So we have a demand for a victory narrative from the last remaining supporters of the Islamic Republic. And if I was the IRGC, the more pragmatic parts of the IRGC, I would have to figure out how to give this victory narrative to our remaining base, and also not let the more aggressive ideological parts of IRGC use my attempt at surrendering against me to eliminate me, because remember, there's a power struggle right now happening between different parts of IRGC because most of the main people are gone. So I have to worry about the people finding out, and I need to also keep on feeding them a victory narrative, or else everything will fall apart. But I also have to watch my back, because if I'm trying to lie to the people with this victory narrative by bending the knee to President Trump, some other parts of the IRGC might come and call it out as a way to remove me and them becoming more influential. But at the same time, I'm trying to signal to President Trump that, hey, I'm actually, whatever I'm saying against you is for internal consumption. I'm actually really trying to surrender to you. But can we please keep this hidden? But the problem is that President Trump doesn't want to keep this a secret because he has his own internal politics to deal with. And one of the demands from the Islamic Republic needs to be that you guys are admitting that you are surrendering, so that you could also show to the Americans that these people are surrendering to me. So because of President Trump's internal politics in the United States, the surrendering needs to be obvious. But from the IRGC's perspective, if I'm going to surrender to you, I need to be able to sell this as a victory to my followers. So you see why this is an impossible situation for them. What type of a surrender will look really impressive in the United States, but looks like a victory to the supporters of the Islamic Republic? Given that they killed the supreme leader, and given that the victory that President Trump wants includes terms of surrender that could be visibly verified because it involves enriched uranium leaving Iran and international observers coming to Iran and verifying that there's no enrichment of uranium inside Iran, these are things that cannot be hidden. You cannot, there's no way after killing Ali Khamenei, if the Islamic Republic agrees to these things, you could sell, the IRGC will not be able to come and sell it. I know these people are insane, but this is so far away from a victory that there's some limits to what you could sell as a victory to these people. And that can't be sold as a victory. That is why IRGC is having a hard time surrendering, because of this victory narrative that they need to sell to their followers. Without it, this will be the end of them. This threatens them more than anything else. This is why the humiliation of the Islamic Republic is part of this psychological warfare. It's not just missiles, it's also memes. We're actually memeing this regime out of existence. Humiliating the Islamic regime's inability to meaningfully respond to Israel and the United States is part of this battle. The memes are as effective as the missiles. This is why, by the way, if you're participating in humiliating the Islamic Republic, you're actually participating in this battle against the regime. This is why these people fear humiliation more than death, because death of people within the Islamic regime is not going to end the Islamic regime, but humiliation might. If you want to talk to me about this or ask me any questions, there's a link to our discussion group in the description. Come join our discussion group. And also in the comment section, let me know what your opinions are about all of this. Let me know if this information is helpful. I really do get motivated when people in the comment section write that, oh, this was really good, useful information. It gives me energy to make more videos like this. Anyways, my name is Armin Navabi. I'm Israel Chai. Long live America. Javisha Payandeira.